everyone, I'm the guy with no name. Before we get started, I do feel compelled to remind you that this is my list, so it's definitely a subjective list. Yours is probably going to look a lot different than mine, and I'm sure there are at least a few decisions I've made that might be considered controversial. Also, to clarify, this is my ranking based on how much I enjoyed each film, not on how well made or how good I thought the film was as a whole. There are more than a couple instances of me ranking one film higher than another based on enjoyment, where it would have been reversed if I was basing it off of how well made it was. Starting off with number 15, and by the way, 15, 14, and 13 are all practically interchangeable to me, but this is the one that I just decided to go with as the worst, but that would be Birds of Prey and the Fantabulous Emancipation of One Harley Quinn. To be honest, this movie was just kind of a mess. There wasn't a lot there to enjoy too much, and honestly, in my opinion, I think they should have gone with a Harley Quinn and Joker-centric story that Suicide Squad kind of seemed to be setting up. I think the way they went just wasn't that compelling and was, at best, forgettable. Number 14, Wonder Woman 1984. This movie was a big letdown for me. The first one was so much better. This movie seemed to be very campy and cartoonish, and the story kind of didn't really make sense, and a lot of the character decisions didn't make sense, and really just was pretty awful in my opinion. 13, Shazam! Fury of the Gods. Another big letdown considering how good the first one was. Once again, the characters of Shazam and Billy Batson are very disjointed and seem like two completely separate people. I did appreciate there was much more of the Shazam family in this one, but the villains, I mean, the actresses who played the villains were just wasted. I thought the villains were nothing special, the story was nothing special, very sloppily put together, and ultimately I left the theater feeling like I wasted my time. 12, Justice League. To clarify, this is the Joss Whedon theatrical version, not the Snyder cut. But man, I remember just DC fans talking about, wouldn't it be amazing to have a Justice League movie someday? And even after the Avengers came out, Marvel's Justice League, everyone still was like, man, I don't know if we'll ever get a Justice League movie. And sure enough, this came out, and what a disappointment. I don't hate it like a lot of people. I don't think there's zero redeeming qualities. I enjoy Batman in it. I definitely enjoy the interactions between all the members of the Justice League. But beyond that, I've heard a lot of people say this, and it's totally true. It really is a Frankenstein's monster version of a movie. That you can just tell the editing's really bad. And oh my gosh, the opening scene with Superman's CGI'd out mustache, it just really sets the tone for the whole movie, and unfortunately never really quite gets better than that. Thank goodness we're out of the awful territory of movies. Number 11, I have Blue Beetle. So there wasn't a lot of anticipation for this movie. One of the reasons being that not a lot of people knew who this character was. I myself vaguely knew about the character through different animated shows or video games. But, you know, I was just hoping for a good time and a different take on the superhero genre. And to be honest, I feel like I only got one out of the two that overall was a good time, but it really was a little too generic and once again, kind of campy, kind of unrealistic. It requires you to suspend your disbelief just a bit too much, and there's ultimately not enough positives to outweigh those negatives. 10, Aquaman. I almost put Blue Beetle in front of this, but I just couldn't due to Jason Momoa as Aquaman and also just how interesting the environment of Atlantis is. Unfortunately, this film's plot is just too contrived. There's too much campiness and goofiness. I mean, you know, the octopus playing the drums, I rolled my eyes at, but that's just one example of just many different problems I had with the movie. I was really hoping for it to be better, so I think part of the reason it's this low is due to it being a disappointment in my opinion. 9, Black Adam. So this movie to me is like a good movie and a bad movie mixed together. There are so many negatives and so many scenes that I hated and made me roll my eyes, but then there were so many other scenes that made me laugh, made me smile, excited me. You know, the action is pretty exciting. I thought The Rock did a good job. I thought he was gonna play, you know, The Rock like he does in so many movies that he's in, but he actually, at the end of the day, plays Black Adam, in my opinion. I saw, by the end of the film, Black Adam. I didn't see The Rock, which was something I thought was not going to happen. Also, the other superheroes like Dr. Fate I found to be super interesting, and man, the Henry Cavill showing up at the end credit scene really had me pumped for the next one, and I'm so bummed that we're never going to see what would have happened. 8. Shazam. Honestly, when I initially think of Shazam, my first thought that pops in my head is, but then, if I give it more time, I start to realize that, no, actually it is a pretty good superhero film. It's very underrated and pretty unique. Sure, you could say Billy Batson and Shazam seem to be different characters, but maybe it's just me. It feels like it's less apparent here than in the sequel. And I really love the scenes where he and his buddy are at the gas station getting a bunch of stuff, or him accidentally finding out he's bulletproof, and the appearance of the Shazam family at the end is great. Once again though, forgettable villain. 7. Suicide Squad. Now, I imagine this is probably one of the more controversial placings on this list, and at this point you might be calling me crazy. I really do understand the criticisms people have with this film. It's not perfect. It has a lot of flaws. I get all of it. I guess while I understand the flaws, they just didn't bother me as much as the average person, while most of the positives I enjoyed probably more than the average person. I guess that's the best way to put it. I mean, I really enjoyed Batman's appearance, although it's short-lived. I liked the variety of characters in the Suicide Squad, and I liked their interactions. And the best part to me was by far the Joker and Harley Quinn. I just found their toxic relationship, no pun intended, to be very enthralling. And I was looking forward to more when it ended. I don't know, sue me. I mean, I almost put Shazam in front of this because I do think Shazam is the better film, but for whatever reason, if I had the choice between rewatch Shazam or rewatch Suicide Squad, I would pick Suicide Squad. 6. Wonder Woman. I really enjoyed Wonder Woman. I wasn't sure how Gal Gadot was going to be helming such a big film like this, but she gets the job done. Chris Pine is a welcome addition to the film. The action's great. The World War I setting makes it just that much more interesting. The only reason it isn't ranked higher is because I felt like the third act, particularly the last fight, just kind of fell apart a little. It was just very CGI heavy and very underwhelming. So would be higher if not for that. Number 5, The Flash. So let's address the elephant in the room. Ezra Miller did some pretty heinous stuff, and because of that, I and many others hope Miller will not be the Flash going forward. In fact, I doubt it just due to the box office alone. I was able to feel comfortable seeing the movie just because supposedly 80 to 90% of the movie had been shot by the time any of this stuff happened, so I can't really blame Warner Brothers at this point. Also, there's hundreds of people involved in the film, such as the director, Ben Affleck, Michael Keaton, and while the main focus is on the Flash, like I alluded to, there is a focus on Batman and on Supergirl as well, but I understand wherever you might fall on this issue and totally get where you would be coming from. If you are able to judge the movie on its own merits, I thought it was definitely one of the better DCEU movies. I thought the jokes, almost all of them landed surprisingly. It had a lot of heart. The time travel element was very different, and ultimately I walked away feeling very satisfied and very surprised. Number 4, Zack Snyder's Justice League. I really can't begin to describe just how much of a miracle it is that this movie even exists. I mean, Warner Bros. Gave Zack Snyder millions of dollars to shoot extra scenes and put this all together, make the special effects great for the most part. It's 4 hours long, it went straight to streaming, and at least in my opinion, it showed us that what could have been was tons better than what was going on with the DCEU past Wonder Woman. I mean, it really just, in a way, is pretty depressing looking at, man, this is what we could have gotten. Now, it's not all perfect. A lot of people just rave about it. I will say some of the scenes, especially after seeing the theatrical cut, really feel super long and drawn out, and the pacing is definitely off. Also, it's kind of a nitpick, but Wonder Woman's theme is pretty annoying. I mean, it's almost like every time she's in a shot, it plays her theme, and it's not the cool theme that we're used to. It's this other weird theme that really is just kind of off-putting and doesn't really fit, in my opinion. But I mean, nitpicks aside, it's a pretty amazing film, and I'm really thankful that even though we're not going to be able to see what was going to happen, which is a huge bummer, I'm just thankful that we at least have this movie. Number 3, Man of Steel. I understand this movie gets a lot of flack from certain people, but I don't understand most of it. I don't think it's a perfect film. It definitely has its flaws. One of my biggest complaints is the end fight is just a bit too drawn out and a bit too destructive. But Henry Cavill, I mean, he plays my favorite iteration of Superman. He does a great job of portraying someone who doesn't quite fit in, but is destined for greatness. Not to mention, he really looks the part. Also, I appreciated the influence his father figures had on him with Kevin Costner and Russell Crowe. And I know some people criticize it for being too dark. For me, it felt less dark and more grounded, and I was able to connect with the character of Superman more than I ever have before. 2, The Suicide Squad. I imagine most of you are probably thinking this is a bit too high on my list, but I don't know, I really enjoyed it. It's very irreverent and vulgar and violent and very gross at times, but it also has so much heart. I mean, the movie's so impressive, it got me to care about people like the Polka Dot Man or King Shark or the Rat Catcher. And to be honest, that alone makes this movie pretty amazing. Number 1, probably the most controversial one on this list, Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Specifically, I'm talking about the Ultimate Edition. I mean, I enjoyed seeing Henry Cavill back as Superman. He was great again. Ben Affleck, I was iffy on as Batman, but once I saw the movie, I was completely sold. He quickly became my favorite Batman after the movie. Probably another controversial take. Christian Bale is now my second, but I appreciated how he was basically the Dark Knight Returns version of Batman, and I appreciated how brutal he was. I mean, man, that warehouse fight at the end is got to be the best Batman fight scene I've ever seen. I know it takes them a while to fight, and I know some people found it to be kind of a cop-out that they eventually team up, but I mean, I expect that to happen. They are both superheroes at the end of the day, after all. I appreciated Wonder Woman. Gal Gadot did great, and I loved seeing all 3 of them teaming up. But yeah, I mean, there are flaws in that movie, but ultimately, so much good that I didn't even care. So, are you calling me crazy right about now? Well, don't just call me crazy, tell me in the comments. Really, let me know why I'm crazy and what your list is. Or, if you liked my list, let me know that too, and maybe a few minor tweaks that you would have made. If you haven't seen any of my previous videos, definitely check out my review of Blue Beetle. It's non-spoiler, don't worry, but you might find that interesting if you found this interesting. And I also have a review of the Star Wars Disney Plus series Ahsoka, episodes 1 and 2, also non-spoiler. Be on the lookout, my next video should be a non-spoiler review of episode 3. But anyways, please like, comment, subscribe. I really appreciate it. Really, each and every one of you, especially the people who are still here, I don't take it for granted. You guys are awesome. Anyways, this is Guy with No Name, signing off.